Thank you so much for coming here today, Mr. Molyneaux, and agreeing to talk to us. If you could start by telling us your name, a little bit about yourself, and how you got to be here at UF today.
Sure. My name is David Molyneaux. I am part of the IPPD group. I'm both a industry sponsor and a courtesy professor from year to year, and I've been doing this for over 10 years now, and we have done 14 projects with the IPPD group. And I work at a company called Invivo. We make medical diagnostic imaging equipment here in Gainesville, and we have about 500 people. So we're always excited every year when we have a project to do with the IPPD group.
Okay, that's great. So can you tell us about how you and your company got started with IPPD?
Well, it was about 10 years ago,
Yes.
and we did our very first project with Keith and his team. He had called me and said, hey, you want to come on over and meet some of the students, and maybe you can do a project. And so for the first year, we were a little skeptical about spending the money and mentoring the students and having the year-long commitment. So we actually monitored one program, kind of just to see how it would go for us. And then after that, we said, absolutely, this is something we want to do. And subsequent to that, there were some years that we actually did multiple projects in a year. So there were a couple of years where we had 2 or even 3 projects running at the same time.
So that year that you just monitored the group, what was it that you saw that made you want to commit to the program fully?
Well, I think we saw several things. First of all, we saw how we could take a small team of aspiring young engineers, put them on a particular focused subject, and come up with some very creative solutions. And let those students then take those creative solutions and try to innovate them into a solution or a product. And we saw that happen with a project, and we knew right away that this was something that we could do. We could take very small projects, put a focused team of individuals on it, have a professional mentor within our company watching over them as well as a faculty sponsor, and be able to have a great outcome.
Okay, that's great. So what do you think is the value of the program?
Well, the program has tremendous value. First of all, I think the ability to get small projects done in a quick amount of time that you normally wouldn't do within your own organization because they fall to the bottom of the list. So when you kind of create your priority list, you have major projects that always take up everyone's time, and you have all these small projects that would be nice to get done, but you don't necessarily have the resources to do it. By having a student team work on that, you can deploy them on the smaller projects while your core members focus on the core projects or the big projects if they need to. The second thing is you get an extremely good look at potential employees. Okay, we have hired a number of students from the IPD program. I think we probably have maybe 10 of our employees have actually come from the IPPD program and have done a project with us. So it's a good opportunity to work with someone, understand what their talents, strengths are, and even what some of their weaknesses are that could be corrected, and then bring them on board as an employee of your company in the future. Okay.
I think what would be the one thing that you've gained from working with this program for 10 years and seeing these young engineers kind of progress, and then especially the ones that go to your company, like seeing that transition from student to employee?
I think it's great because you get to see the students who would normally come into a job very new, very fresh. They've already been acclimated. They already have experience in the company. They've done a project for a year. They've worked with people at the company. They're not scared to get their feet wet, and they can hit the ground running when they become employees. Whereas if you hire someone cold off the street, it usually takes about a year for them to even get to the point where they're producing productive results. If you take a student from an IPPD group, especially one that you've worked with, they can come in the door and start off right away.
Okay. So what would you say are the top attributes of an IPPD coach?
The top attributes of an IPPD coach. Wow, that's a difficult question. I think there's a lot of attributes of an IPPD coach. I think an IPPD coach has to be available all the time. And I think that's the number one thing that I see. Having the coach be accessible to the students is extremely important. They really need to be there daytime, nighttime, the weekly meetings. They need to be there by email, be there by telephone. If the access isn't there to the coach, the students struggle, because a week will go by with no contact, and the coach will tell them what to do for another week, and then another week will go by with no contact, and you'll quickly lose 4 to 6 weeks in the program, not having access to that coach on almost a daily basis. I think the second thing the coach needs to do is be fully engaged. Okay, this can't be like a sideline priority for the coach. This has to be something that he's committed to do. He's committed to the students. He's committed to the project, and he's going to be there, and he's going to be able to provide technical assistance. I think the third thing the coach needs to be able to do is to be able to network. If the coach doesn't know the answer, he needs to have a network of people he can go to get the answers, whether they're people within his own organization or even people at the university here. He needs to be able to network. So I think those are probably the top 3 attributes of a coach.
Okay. And then in your company, so you would have employees that volunteer to be the IPPD coaches?
Yes, exactly. Okay. So I've done coaching myself for several other projects. People that have worked for me have also been coaches of the projects, and I've kind of been just a mentor on the side to see how things are going in case they need extra help.
And what would you say, I think, the coaches that you've had from your companies, they have enjoyed the experience? Absolutely.
They love the experience. They love being able to work with the students. They find it a challenge quite often because they don't know the answer. The students don't know the answer, but together, collectively, they can come up with the right answers.
Okay. And what would you say then are the top attributes of an IPPD student?
Top attributes of an IPPD student is another tough one because I think, again, they have to be multifaceted, multidisciplined. So I think, first of all, they have to be committed, okay, just like the coaches. They have to be available, just like the coaches. So if an IPPD student is carrying a large number of credits and they see this as a small program commitment, they shouldn't do it because it's a very large commitment for a student. The payoff in return, though, is very huge for a student. It's much bigger than doing just a senior design project. I think the student has to be very disciplined, very rigorous. They have to be able to keep the pace up with what's going on in the class, keep the pace up with what's going on with the project, and make themselves accessible at all the times to all the other team members and the coach. I also think that they really have to be diverse. So a good IPPD student will not just be able to do one part of a project. They will be able to make contributions across the entire project. They can help with the business case. They can help with the analytical model. They can help build the prototype. They could help do the testing. They could go help with market research. So they really got to be prepared to be able to reach way beyond just their engineering domain and encompass all facets of the project.
Okay. And if you could say one thing to the IPPD community and future generations of engineers, what would it be?
You must do this project. You must do this program because this will be the most valuable experience you will ever get at the University of Florida in the 5 years it takes you to get through the engineering program. The IPPD program is a must-do.
I think from your 10 years, what have been some of the most memorable products have you seen produced?
That's a good question. We've had students work on pieces of projects, and we've had them work on total projects. We have actually had a couple that have become products as opposed to projects. One of them is an expiratory muscle training device. It's called an EMST 150. And it's a device that you actually blow into, and you can train your lungs to become stronger. And we had a student project work on it. It was an innovation that came out of the university from a couple professors that were doing some pulmonary chronic disorders research. And we basically engineered the product. We developed it. We tooled it. We manufactured it. We created a company for it. And you can now buy this product on Amazon.com. If you type in Aspire LLC EMST 150, $49.99, you can get it shipped to you right now, tomorrow from Amazon. So that's a great feat in itself.
Okay, it's really great. And if you could describe the IPPD program in one word, what would it be and why?
Awesome. It really is awesome. It's absolutely the experience that every engineering student should be involved in as an engineering student because it totally prepares you for the real world. It gives you everything you need to see, not from a book perspective, but from a real life perspective. And you can become completely engaged with the entire process that happens at companies without ever getting your foot in the door and getting hired first. And it really will help you in the end.
And along those lines, the students that you have in your team, I think what's the most difficult thing for them to grasp when they start working on these projects?
The most difficult thing for them to grasp is the big picture, the whole project picture. Okay. Students are used to working on individual problems that they're assigned to, either in class or on exams. So they have problem number 18 from the textbook. They solve that problem. They move to problem number 19. In an IPPD program, the problems are multifaceted. They're all over the place. They involve lots of people, lots of subjects. So they have a hard time grasping sometimes the depth of those problems. They're not very discrete individual problems. They're problems that touch a lot of points, and they have to go out there and try to encompass the entire problem and create solutions for the entire problem.
Okay. And since we've talked a lot about the IPPD coaches, we were kind of wondering what have been some of your coaches and your mentors, and how has that helped you in your profession? And then, how do you see that reflected in what you have done with the IPPD program?
Yeah, it's actually interesting because a coach and a manager are two different things. Okay, a manager manages people. Okay, and you manage professionals differently than you manage students. So one of the benefits, I think, for some of the coaches who are also managers at the company is they got to manage a different set of people that they weren't used to. A more immature audience, a more non-professional audience. So in the real world, you're used to having a certain level of maturity, a certain level of education, and a certain level of experience with your engineers. In the case of the student population, they are inexperienced. They have no workplace experience. Okay, they're and maybe immature is not the right word to use, but they're green. Okay, so they're fresh, and so you manage those kind of people a little bit differently. You use softer gloves when you manage students versus your employees. So I think it's taught some of the managers at the company how to manage people a little bit softer and a little bit better.
Okay. And I have no further questions unless you want to say a final comment about the program.
Again, I think just reinforcing what I said previously, the program is awesome. Every engineering student should do it. It should become a mandatory part of the curriculum. I think that everyone has to have that real-life experience before they go out there and have the real-life experience.
Thank you very much.
Perfect. Thank you.